Former Chief Justice Mogoeng has until Friday the 3rd, that's next week Thursday, to decide if he'll apologize for his pro-Israel comments or go to court to review that decision, which found that he's guilty of misconduct. The Judicial Conduct Committee confirmed earlier findings that Mogoeng breached the Judicial Code of Conduct when he involved himself in a political controversy. That was in July 2020. In a webinar hosted by the Jerusalem Post, you'll remember, Mogoeng expressed his support for the State of Israel. The SA Communist Party is urging the former Chief Justice to abide by the findings and apologize. Let's get you more on this now. Bring in SACP Central Committee member, Dr. Alex Mashilo, who's with us via our video link. Dr. Mashilo, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for making time for us this Monday morning. You are urging the former Chief Justice to not even appeal this decision. Tell us why.
Remember that this decision was taken by the Judicial Conduct Appeals Committee, meaning that it went to the Judicial Conduct Committee before. There was a judgment, if we can call it a judgment. There was a decision that he should apologize. In return, he appealed to the Judicial Conduct Appeals Committee. So this is a decision of the Judicial Conduct Appeals Committee. It is a decision made by judges serving in our judicial system.
Yeah.
Apologizing is advisable for the Chief Justice. It will show that he cares about the people of Palestine, whose land has systematically been taken away in an expropriation by the latter-day state of Israel, which is an apartheid state. You know how many people year in, year out, the Israeli apartheid regime is murdering, including children and women. That cannot be something a person can stand from the opposite side as if this Israel of today is the one that the Bible talks about. We all know how this Israel of today came about, and it is continuously expanding itself, and in the process of expanding, it is engaging in atrocities and human rights violation. It is just making sense for the judge to say these cannot be the things one can stand for.
Yeah. Of course, one is also reminded of the former Chief Justice's own words. I think he said something along the lines of, even if 50 million people were to march, I will never apologize. If what he said is something he's willing to stand by, you're unlikely to get what you're asking for.
You need to take into consideration, as I said, that these decisions are made by judges serving in our judicial system. By apologizing, the former Chief Justice will be strengthening confidence in the judicial system instead of weakening confidence in the judicial system. This is the time when South Africans need to see those who serve in the highest echelons of the system strengthening confidence in it. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is a very, very, very serious conflict. It is also important to express solidarity with the people of Palestine against the atrocities that they have experienced and continue to experience in the hands of the Israeli apartheid.
Yeah. I mean, the context is also important, right? At least the context under which we're working now. There's been so much said about the standing of particularly even black judges in our country, especially on the back of that contentious opinion piece from Lindiwe Sisulu. In what ways, if any, do you reckon those developments might have a bearing on how the Chief Justice views this issue and how he subsequently responds to it?
The Chief Justice studied law. He participated at various levels of our court system. He served at the highest echelon, being the Constitutional Court. There can be no doubt that when you have been in the system and you appeal to a body, that body dismisses your appeal except for a few points, but accepts an earlier decision which it reaffirms, you really need to step back a little bit and reflect. People do make statements that I will never do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. However, when the judicial system makes decisions, you reflect and then you comply, which is why we are saying, and we are saying this humbly to former Chief Justice Mogoeng, that he should step forward and comply with the decision, because if he does not do so, and future developments reaffirm this decision, it will not be good for him and for our standing. Remember that as the Chief Justice, you occupy the highest position in our judicial system. You cannot be seen to be against an international policy adopted by the Council, because these policies are brought to the judiciary when there are disputes. You cannot be seen to be taking sides. We all know what the people who organize that session stand for, and we are not in agreement with their activities.
Yeah. In trying to defend what he said, in fact, it's interesting you mentioned that he can't be seen to be taking sides, because what he said is, I'll never say I hate anybody or any nation. I will never. I love everybody. I love Israel. I love Jews. I love Palestinians. I love every nation. I don't hate anyone. I mean, do you think he's adequately responded to the concerns that were raised here? Or, you know, is there something to be said about how he at least views what actually took place in that webinar?
It will be unreasonable to expect him to hate other people. There was context at the webinar. There is a conflict between Israel and Palestine. In fact, let's put things this way. Think about apartheid South Africa and substitute the name apartheid South Africa with the name Israel. You will see that what the people of Palestine are going through is what the oppressed African majority in particular, and black people in general, have experienced in South Africa under the apartheid system. And here comes an NGO that organizes a seminar in favor of the apartheid regime. And your utterances at that seminar suggest that you don't feel any indignation about the situation of the oppressed. It cannot be. It cannot be at all. Because as it expands today, Israel, it is expressing more than hatred, Israel. Year in, year out, it is killing the Palestinian people, even children. Just imagine a heavily armed state bombing a child, tearing that child into pieces. And what is the most appropriate thing when you enter the terrain? You should be saying, please, don't do that. Don't do that.
Doctor,
you cannot be seen to be taking sides.
Right, right. Dr. Alice Mashilo, thanks very much for weighing in on this developing story. Really do appreciate your take. Dr. Mashilo is a member of the SACP Central Committee. And the Chief Justice, of course, has until next week, Thursday, February the 3rd, to respond to what the JSC has reaffirmed, essentially. And until then, we'll keep watching the story as it develops. Dr. Mashilo, once again, thanks very much indeed.